you are correct when what we're heading for. We're heading for a hyperinflationary depression globally. And that's because of the high prices the inflation is going to be so rampant, and everyone is just going to stand there where the economy will stop because the input costs will be so great that the engines of the economy will just stop.
Yeah, and John Williams is calling it the Great Collapse, which he thinks, could easily begin in the next 6 to 9 months in terms of the hyperinflation.
I guess the closest country we can come close to would be Zimbabwe, where, I would say that was a hyperinflationary depression.
Okay.
But I don't think we've ever. But remember, this is going to be with the U.S. as the global, as the dominant global currency, right? And it is the one that's going to cause everybody else to go. Is the Chinese are still, their value of their currency is fixed to the U.S. So they're having massive inflation there, and they're gonna have to raise their yuan in order to stop the inflation going into their country.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. We're actually exporting our inflation with our fiat dollars, aren't we?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. And that's probably, in the next month or so, I think China is going to have to, stop this, or else they're going to have 1.3 billion people clamoring in on Beijing,
Right.
So, you're seeing riots all over the place. You're seeing England, the tuition fees are gone crazy. In Dublin, I have a good friend in Dublin, and it's a catastrophe over there. And there's a lot of anger in Ireland. When Spain goes, that should do it. There's not enough money in Europe. And you'll see that go, and you'll probably see England go. I don't know if you guys caught, but the United States, when the U.S. bank, the Fed, actually gave money to the Bank of England.
Right.
I want you to know how significant this is. Okay.
Well, let me ask you this, Harvey, then, because I'm curious as to what you think. Do you think that the bankers, the controllers, if we think about the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and, whoever else you want to throw into that category, do you think they've overplayed their hand to the point that now they're terrified?
For sure.
Okay, so their empires are at risk as well?
The Rothschilds are interesting. The Rothschilds have always been in gold from Nathan Rothschild back in the early 1800s, because remember, both sides of the family fought with Napoleon. They had the French brothers who fought, and they financed the wars.
The bankers to the Queen.
That's correct. Both sides, to the French side and to the English side. Now, it's interesting that the fixed morning and afternoon fix of gold was always set by the Rothschilds and a few other banks, but it was really the Rothschilds. Yeah, so 2004, they got out of this because they realized what was happening, and they knew that they could not supply any gold anymore. So I can assure you that they've been massively increasing their reserves in their vaults privately. And that's been going on for last 4 or 5, actually 6 years now. The bankers realize what's going on. They're trying to pile on as much fiat dollars as they can to the detriment of all, normal citizens. And everyone of you listening to you should be taking whatever you can and taking your fiat dollars and converting to some silver, a bit of gold, and that will become very valuable to you as the time next year comes when there'll be a default. There's certainly going to be defaults all over. They're actually probably default now. If you settle in cash, that's a default in itself.
Right.
And certainly in London you're seeing that. And I just want to tell you, it's impossible. My good friend Reg Howe always told me, whenever you see backwardation in gold, the game is over. And we're now seeing it in London. And what it really means is simple, is that a person in the spot price says, I do not trust to get gold in the future. It's better to be in my pocket today. So he could cash it, get the interest in all this money, and earn and get this money a year from now. But he doesn't want to do it, so he's forgoing that because he's scared. When you start seeing that, the game is over. Why haven't we seen backwardation in the comics? And the answer is very simple. They're manipulating the price at the end. Because they're driving it up at the end of the day. He's seen that. So whereas London is not, and they're showing the backwardation, whereas COMEX is a slight rise in the future months, okay, to show, because they know that we're watching this. So I want all you girls and guys to watch this, because backwardation is a very, very important signal of scarcity of metal.
Okay.
On the physical side,
it's a sign of the smoke coming out of the COMEX.
You right on.
And the LBMA.
Especially, and that's what I do. I watch the LBMA to see what goes on, to see how this will influence what goes on over at the COMEX.
Okay.
You're dealing with a global market. Now, the most important thing is what goes over in London is the physical. So that's why the importance of times. So when you start seeing, okay, why do they start rating at 10 o'clock at 10 minutes and 1 minute right after, right? And the reason is they fix the price at 10. So in other words, they're using whatever amount of physical they have to sell to the guys that are standing there. London really closes at 12 when they lock them in a room and they do all their business on the physical side and they allocate what they have. That's between 10 and 12. And then once 12 o'clock, when London's put to bed, it's strictly paper. And that's when you're seeing all these guys do all these crazy trading and go and they whack it and in the access market. You're dealing with paper. And I just don't pay attention to it. But at least I point out to you guys the important thing is watch what happens in the physical market. And this is where they're in trouble.
I've said in past videos, Harvey, that this isn't a race against price for me, for the common man. I think it's a race against time.
Yes, I agree with that.
You need to just get as much as you can get, as often as you can get it, and don't worry about the price. With the 100 to 1 manipulation, my whole thing is just buy it and forget about it.
You should thank them for doing this for you.
Yeah.
Okay, you got some time, so take advantage of it. They're the price is low, and take advantage, and just be prepared. The world has never seen what they're going to see. The world, it's unbelievable what's going to happen because you're seeing it. You're going to see it globally. The world is going to go into an entire hyperinflationary depression everywhere. Like China will be experiencing it more than we will. They'll be the first, and then it'll just snowball to everywhere.
Well, and I know you're one of the big guys, Harvey, in terms of your holdings, and I think your gift back to humanity is your willingness to tell the truth in a time of universal deceit. To quote Eric Blair, known as George Orwell, and I want to thank you so much for that, because if more people were like you, if more people would stand up and tell the truth against the storm, and stand against these winds. Humanity could rise up and take this thing back, okay? We could take it back. And I just appreciate your willingness to stand up and tell the truth, because it's scary to do it.
Well, I thank you, and that's what my job is to educate, and I'm trying to do it when I write it, and try to do it in simple language where the average person can understand, or the other commentators, it's a little tricky to understand, like Kirby. Kirby's he's a PhD, this guy, he's a very bright guy. And I try to do it in a simple language that you all can understand, because it's very important that you take action on yourself to protect yourself, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, well, and I think where I was going with that too is, let's say the big guys have 100,000 ounces of silver in storage or whatever, 500,000 ounces of silver. The big guys that have been at this for a decade or two, okay? Bill Murphy, you, Turk, all these guys. But you're talking about the little guys like me and the common man. The point I'm trying to make is that given the hyperinflationary Great Depression that is coming worldwide, as you described, the fiat paper bathing nations across the planet, and the little guy who maybe could find a way to get 500 ounces of silver.
500 ounces will save us.
That's going to be a lot of money in the future, to the degree that it'll allow you to compared to the 99.9% of the people that won't have any silver.
Right.
Okay.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. That 500 ounce will save them. Okay, that they can able to do and buy stuff and. Just think of this. When this thing collapses, there's going to be a banking holiday, and that banking holiday will not be 1 or 2 days. That banking holiday will be 3 months. Mm-hmm. Well, that means you can't have access to your credit card, can't go to a bank because they're closed. Mm-hmm. How are you going to deal with cash? How are you going to pay for things? By the way, I called it treason. I in one of my letters to the CFTC, I said, as far as I'm concerned, it's treason that you allowed your gold, your treasure, to go from Western shore, your shores, onto China shores and to Russian shores. I thought it's treasonous.
I agree. Well, they let the industry go too.
I said that, and I think that's probably one of the reasons they invited me to speak. Whatever has happened in March of 2010 is worse now. That
March hearing at which you spoke, and Adrian Douglas, I believe, spoke a bit at that, and then we had Jeff Christian. That was just an epic, revolutionary moment to me. That was a wake-up call.
It was a wake-up call, and it certainly people understood everything that we were trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jeff Christian was not really for us. Jeff Christian was on the opposite side.
Correct.
And all of a sudden he gets his foot in his mouth, and he certainly said what we've been saying all along. We said, "Thank you, Jeff."
Yeah. He made a great case for you.
Oh, it was just wonderful. I mean, it's everything we've been trying to say. All of a sudden, he just said our piece.
Precious metals are financial assets, and like currencies and T-bills and T-bonds, they trade in the multiples of 100 times the underlying physical.
I think it sort of demonstrates the hubris that is, if he's associated with the banks and used to work for Goldman. I mean, it's just that kind of mentality, the hubris, to not even be able to self-edit, to not see that what you're saying is going to be taken as a smoking gun.
Oh, actually, I have the emails back and forth that he was trying to tell me how he was been right and that I got it wrong. And I said, Jeff, this is what you said. You said you thought Barrack. What more can you say? And every email he got worse into trouble. And I then said it to Adrian. Adrian was scratching his head and says, "What is this guy doing? He's giving us he's putting it on a silver platter for us."
Oh my God!
And it's true. What has actually happened, and from that day on, you're seeing that all of a sudden the contraction of the LBMA, where it used to be 2,300 tons of gold would trade every day there,
mm-hmm.
And nobody would take delivery, just move it forward each time. All of a sudden, it's now half of that.
Right.
So all of a sudden, you can imagine all the paper derivative. If you lose half your physical to China and to Russia and to South Korea buying and Venezuela buying, and everybody, all the nations of the world are taking they say, why am I having fiat? I'm going to take my gold. So all of a sudden, and they go to London because they've got the supply. All of a sudden, it's contracting there. So it's a mess. So once it finishes out of LBMA, then it's going to switch to the last, and in a nanosecond, what do they have, 100 tons? 100 tons will be gone, the game's over. That's what's going to happen. So that's why I watch both markets, so you guys are ready for it. But you're seeing so much in silver, they're already at that stage,
mm-hmm.
where they have to put out so many fires all over the world, 1 million ounces here, 1 million ounces there, adjustments here, adjustments there. They got real problems. And in gold, it's the opposite. In gold, what you're seeing is, here is the biggest delivery month of all, December, right? You're supposed to say, well, wait a minute. So gold's supposed to come in to the dealer, and then it's out. Nothing's coming in. How are they settling? It's the most amazing market. So if you can get a few ounces of physical, that's going to save you.
Okay. Well, Harvey, we just absolutely can't thank you enough for your time, and we can't thank you enough for your willingness to, share truth and do the research and help us understand it. So on behalf of my little YouTube channel and all of the dedicated, listeners, thank you so much.
Well, it's a pleasure, and I really enjoy this very much.
Well, you're one of the greats, and we look forward to speaking with you again in the future, if you don't mind.
Anytime. I'll be more than happy.
Okay. Thank you, Harvey.
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye.
And as always, guys, thanks for watching.